I will never call him by that name. I gotten used to the people around me call him by the new name at least, but for me, he will always be Rath to me. That is a mysterious swordman, although his identity isn't that much of a secret though. You will look at his kit and you compare it to another strongbow user, Xanta, and you'll go, oh, this is just sword Xanta, but this time with an actual decent good AoE instead of Xanta having no AoE. And he also has some really strong wind move where he can debuff up to 25% wind defense down on the enemy by himself. You can pair him with Odette if you're missing any other wind buffer, and you can get the enemy down to 30% wind defense down. But his base magic attack isn't that high, so do not expect for him to deal a lot of wind damage. Rath's first passive is technically unconditionally 30% sword damage up most of the time. If you worry about him not critting a lot, you can just put on some accessory for him, so he always have the 30% passive damage cap. His second passive is the reason why Rath is still so strong even in the JP version and how he's still relevant in the meta. Rath will always go first. Regardless of how fast the enemy is, regardless of his speed, he will always go first. And he has a 5-hit. A 5-hit that always go first, meaning that you can always just put the enemy down to 5 shield and just break the shield next turn because you don't have to worry about them acting fast or anything, because Rath can just take care of that. And plus, this passive get even better once one of the missing 4-star release into the game, where the A4 accessory will make this passive even stronger, which I will explain later. His ultimate is Raging Slash, which has a level 10 priority of 3, which means that after A1ing him or A2 him, you should go for level 10 right away. The reason being is that usually if you bring Rath, he will always be your initial turn shield breaker. So in the previous turn, he would use up all of his VP and he would damage the enemy and break the enemy shield. But on the next turn, he has no VP and his 5-hit costs a lot of SP to reuse it. That's why on the next turn, it's the perfect turn to use Rath ultimate because it's a nuke by itself, it can sub Rath SP, it also debuff the enemy defense and it always go first. Which means that not only Rath get a big nuke by himself, he also debuff the enemy defense which stack with other defense buff, so your team deal more damage to the enemy. Which is why you want to have this ultimate level 10 after you A1 him of course, so that you have an extra turn of rotation where you can repeat this method where you break the enemy shield and you follow up with an ultimate next turn. Also, it's one of the contributing reasons of why Rath is still meta in the JP version. Oh, and before anyone wondering why ultimate level 10 over A4, cause his A4 is good, but later on in JP we are getting even better accessory for free where it can make a good substitute for his A4, so for me A10 level 10 is better. Rath do have a weakness though, is that because of his low SP pool, where it's only 300, it's really hard for him to spam his 5-hit, so therefore you have to rotate him out in the back line constantly because you run out SP for Rath at that rate. His other kind of bad weakness though is that Rath will always go first when you boost max. Sometimes you want to buff first of the entire team like the net buff before Rath go first, but because Rath has his passive up, he will always go first. But this is preventable since later on in the future, there will be an option to turn off passive. Currently in the game, Rath is the best damage DPS in the game. Well, his damage output might not be as high as Oberic, but he do at least have a lot of multi-hit compared to Oberic who have no multi-hit at all. And now, this is the fun part for me. In the land of the rising sun, why is Rath still meta over there? Over there, we have a lot of warrior who can put out even more damage than Rath, and the shield breaking potential is really good too. Over there, we have units like Elga, Heitu, Rondo, Titus, Tubi, Richard, and a few more can put out more damage than him, and is also good at breaking shield. And yet, despite this, Rath still see more usage than most of these units I just listed. Damage cap. In JP, we're hitting the first reason is damage cap. In JP, where hitting the damage cap is not that hard at all, many other units I just list right here, including Rondo, Titos, or Tubi, all these units have the strongest move in a one-hit nuke, which means that it's easy for them to hit the damage cap, but Rath's strongest move is a 5-hit, so he can bypass that problem. There are weapons that let you increase your damage cap of your character, but this weapon is not the best attacking weapon and there are better attacking weapons, so the unit that hit the damage cap had to exchange some of the attack on the weapon for a damage cap increase. Reason number 2. Priority 5 hit. Warrior isn't fast like Thief. Usually Thief will be good for initial shield breaking, but most of the time the enemy will always act first before most Warrior. But for Rath, he will always guarantee to go first, so therefore he can prevent the enemy from taking action while also dealing 5 hit of shield point to the enemy. And that is why Rath is still considered the best sword shield breaker right now in the game for both EN and the JP version. Reason number 3, and the most important one out of all, his ultimate and Yorn A4. The ultimate is easy to understand. It goes first, it's a big nuke, it debuffs the enemy, and make your other damage user deal more damage to the enemy. To put a visual on this, imagine it as a weaker Lynette ultimate, but it's for physical attacker only. The second one is Yorn A4 accessory, which is one of the units that hasn't been released yet for the EN version. Yorn A4 has this effect of whenever you break the enemy, debuff them by 10% sword defense down. And this, when combined with everything else Rath has, make him always guarantee that when the enemies in break, they'll always have passively 10% sword defense down. And this, combined with everything else he has, is why Rath is so strong even in JP right now. He is a sword debuffer. Right now in JP, the 3 most optimal units for you to have in a sword team comp is Richard for his sword buffing, Rath for his sword debuffing, and Eraga because she just hit really hard. If I haven't clarified any of this clearly on why Rath is still meta in the JP version, then you can go ahead and ask me in the comment. Also, here's a quick comparison between Rath and Xanta, where I don't have any other strong sword user to compare to Rath to because his role is kinda unique, so I don't have anyone else to compare to. So therefore, here's Xanta. When compared like this, Rath is just a better sword Xanta, although with less SP pool for him though. But he's just a better sword Xanta. I know that some of you guys are worried about the fact that Rath might get power creep in the future because we have more powerful warrior upcoming in the future, but do not worry about that. He will be meta for a very long time and you won't regret pulling for him. As for me, well, I definitely pulling for him, so see you guys tomorrow's stream, bye bye!